class! Thanks so much for watching my presentation. Today I'm going to talk to you about nonverbal communication. So let's start with the definition. What is nonverbal communication? According to conflict resolution education, nonverbal communication has been defined as communication without words. It includes apparent behavior such as facial expressions, eyes, touching, and tone of voice, as well as less obvious messages such as dress, posture, and spatial distance between two or more objects. So why is nonverbal communication important to know and understand? Well, Tekow and Tescassi in 2015 did a study where they looked at focus groups and individuals' nonverbal cues in those focus groups, and they really worked to discern what they were trying to say with their nonverbal communication. In this study, they say, according to specialists, affective and attitudinal contents are transmitted nonverbal 55%, paraverbal 38%, and just 7% verbal. Thus, a verbal message unaccompanied by the nonverbal and paraverbal component will be harder to decode, which means that just submitting a verbal message is not going to decode well with the audience. They're not going to understand it or be able to digest what you're trying to say. So it's really important to have strong nonverbal cues that will help drive home what you're trying to say. The three main points that I will be discussing in this presentation are nonverbal communication can either help or hinder the message that's being relayed. Nonverbal communication and cues differ across cultures, and nonverbal communication affects everything from grades to relationships. So how do nonverbal cues affect a message? It is generally believed that nonverbal cues cannot be faked. While we might tell ourselves during a presentation to mind our posture, maintain eye contact with the audience, the majority of the time our nonverbal cues are completely involuntary. And so it really helps showcase what a person is thinking and feeling, even if their verbal messages are completely different. Nonverbal communication can work to repeat, contradict, substitute, complement, or accent verbal communication according to Wertheim. So this means that a good, strong nonverbal cue can even go without a single word. If a student is acting up in class, you can touch their shoulder and they'll know, okay, I need to stop. Or using strong nonverbal cues with a strong verbal message can also really drive home the point and make that message easy to decode for the audience, while using a completely contradictory nonverbal cue from the message that's being said can lose the message entirely for the audience, and they will most likely not be able to interpret it well at all. There are also cultural gaps in nonverbal communication. A good example of this is in the Vermont Department of Health hand guide on nonverbal communications. They say, while patting a child's head is considered to be a friendly or affectionate gesture in our culture, it is considered inappropriate by many Asians to touch someone on the head, because the head is believed to be a sacred part of the body. Another example of this is that generally speaking, touch between opposite gendered individuals in Muslim cultures is completely inappropriate. So even just, our basic instinct to reach out and shake somebody's hand can be a complete slap in the face to another culture. Likewise, according to Andrews University in 2010, in America, we really value the smell of perfumes and deodorants. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. While in Arabic cultures, they consider the natural body odor to be completely normal. So even something such as just a different smell can make somebody uncomfortable and can make somebody not feel like they can build immediacy with you. So it's really important to understand where people are coming from for different cultures, and what may be normal to them and what may be normal to you can be two completely different things. Marianne Gall in 2007 studied the nonverbal characteristics of both leaders from America and Hungary, and she found that what we would describe as almost dictatorial nonverbal cues, maintaining incredibly strong eye contact, strong posture, monotone voice, being direct with a message, is what the Hungarian culture really views as leadership. Meanwhile, we can have press conferences with our leaders, especially politicians, where they can crack jokes and kind of let their hair down a little bit, and we view that as leadership because they're showing their true colors. So these two things can show how different cultures can be, even for what they expect from leadership. And if you're trying to work with somebody from a different culture and your nonverbal cues are completely different than from what they're used to working with, it can completely dismantle a message and the work that you're trying to do. So how do nonverbal cues affect everyday life? Harui and Yang in 2014, they did a study that looked at a group of Chinese and a group of American college students and their relationship immediacy. And their study showed that students who showcased similar verbal and nonverbal communication styles, such as avoidance, their relationships were affected the same in both cultures. If somebody was avoidant with their nonverbal cues, the happiness in their relationship was really non-existent for both parties. And while the cues that they're using in their nonverbal communication may be different, the outcomes were the same. Tonelet and Aranguren in 2014 studied a Paris subway. They used videotapes and facial correlation software to view and classify how individuals felt as subway riders as a stranger would approach their space. And the majority of the subjects showed the same nonverbal cues. Their hands might get a little tighter on what they're holding. They might grimace, their body might stiffen, and it showed that people are really territorial about their space. And so having spatial awareness and being aware of those nonverbal cues are really important for you to want to build any kind of immediacy with those that you're talking to. So in conclusion, these three main points that I've discussed in this presentation are incredibly important to understanding and effectively using nonverbal communication. And there's so many more parts to this than just these three. But it's really important to make sure that your message is being displayed the way that you want it to be, regardless of who you're speaking to, and you must make your audience feel comfortable. So, thank you so much for watching the presentation, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks.